The pistol is cool against his temple. Lieutenant Nobuo Fujita tastes copper, blood from biting his tongue in the crash. His left leg is wrong, twisted in a way that makes his vision pulse black at the edges. The Zero lies 30 meters behind him, a crumpled shrine of aluminum and torn canvas trailing smoke into the Guadalcanal sky. He dragged himself this far through the kunai grass on his elbows, far enough to see them coming. 3 Marines, rifles up, moving through the grass in a practiced spread, keeping intervals. The tall one on the left, the leader, has red hair visible beneath his helmet. Fujita's hand shakes. Not from fear. He decided fear was finished when the American .50 caliber rounds chewed through his engine cowling and gravity became his enemy. The shaking is from the morphine autoinjector he stabbed into his thigh, the one they issued for exactly this situation. Enough to let you think clearly. Not enough to stop the white-hot railroad spike where his femur broke through skin. 20 meters now. He can see the tall one's freckles. Young, maybe 20. The rifle barrel looks enormous from this angle, a perfect circle of darkness that will end everything if Fujita waits. But he won't wait. He knows what comes next. The propaganda lectures were clear. Americans take no prisoners. They torture for information, then kill you slowly. They are demons wearing human skin. Their democracy a disease that rots away honor and discipline. You are samurai. You do not surrender to demons. The Nambu pistol weighs almost nothing. 7 rounds. He needs only 1. His thumb finds the safety, slides it forward. The click is absurdly loud. 15 meters. The tall Marine, Fujita can read his name tape now, Morrison, raises his fist. The other 2 stop moving. Morrison's eyes lock with Fujita's. Blue eyes. Clear like water over stones in the stream behind his parents' house in Nagano. The eyes see the pistol, see its position against Fujita's temple. Morrison's rifle is still up, still aimed, but something crosses his face. Not fear, not triumph. Something else. Something Fujita has no word for. Then Morrison does the impossible thing. He lowers his rifle, just drops the muzzle toward the dirt, slow and deliberate like he's setting down something precious. His other hand comes up, palm out, fingers spread. Stop. Wait. The universal gesture. Morrison says something. English, the syllables meaningless, but the tone. The tone is soft, gentle. The tone you'd use with a frightened animal. He takes a step forward, still talking, that hand still raised. His rifle hangs from its sling now, both hands visible. Empty. 10 meters. Fujita's finger finds the trigger. He has been trained for this. Better death than dishonor. Better the bullet than what these demons will do. The lectures showed photographs. American brutality. Torture devices. Horrors awaiting any pilot who fell into their hands. His thumb tightens on the pistol's hammer, pulling it. Back. 1 more pound of pressure and this ends. Clean. Quick. Honorable. But Morrison keeps coming. 5 meters now, still talking in that low voice, hands out like he's approaching a shrine. Like Fujita is something sacred rather than enemy. The other 2 Marines have their rifles up, covering. But Morrison has nothing. He is walking toward an armed enemy pilot, completely unarmed by choice. It makes no sense. Nothing in Fujita's training accounts for this. Enemy soldiers kill you or capture you. They do not approach with empty hands and voices like prayer. Morrison kneels. Right there in the mud and torn grass, 3 meters away, he kneels like a supplicant. Like Fujita outranks him, instead of lying here shattered and defeated. Morrison's hands go to his belt, and Fujita tenses. Here comes the weapon, the demonstration, the beginning of what the propaganda promised. But Morrison pulls out a canteen. Metal. Standard issue. He unscrews the cap with slow, exaggerated movements, showing Fujita every step. Then, Morrison extends it. Offers it. His eyes never leave Fujita's face. Easy, buddy. Morrison's voice is Tennessee honey, thick and slow. Easy. Nobody's gonna hurt you. The words mean nothing. Fujita's English consists of yes, no, and I am Lieutenant Nobuo Fujita of the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service, rank number 107435. His prisoner of war statement memorized phonetically. But meaning doesn't live in words right now. Meaning lives in Morrison's steady hands, in the canteen extended like an offering, in the complete absence of threat from a man who should be his executioner. Fujita's hand is still shaking. The pistol is still against his temple. Morrison sees this, makes a show of setting down the canteen in the grass between them, then sitting back on his heels, hands raised again. No threat, no weapon, just a man who has given water to his enemy and is waiting. The propaganda said demons, but demons do not kneel. Demons do not offer water. Demons do not look at you with eyes that somehow communicate. I see you hurting, and I can help across the barrier of language and war, and everything that separates human from human. Fujita drops the pistol. It falls into the mud with a soft sound that might be the loudest thing he has ever heard. His hand feels impossibly light without it, like he has released more than just steel and bullets. Morrison doesn't move for the weapon. Instead, he picks up the canteen and edges forward, slowly, giving Fujita time to refuse. But Fujita doesn't refuse. Cannot refuse. His throat is sandpaper. His lips are split. The morphine makes him shiver despite the equatorial heat. Morrison tips the canteen to his lips. The water tastes like metal and canvas and impossible mercy. It is the best thing Fujita has ever tasted. He drinks, and the world narrows to this: enemy hands holding water to his lips with the gentleness of a mother with her child. When he chokes, Morrison pulls it back, waits, offers it again. 3 times they do this. 3 times the Tennessee Marine gives water to the Japanese pilot who was trying to kill Americans 90 minutes ago. Behind Morrison, one of the other Marines, young, baby-faced, looking maybe 17, has lowered his rifle too. He's staring at Morrison with something like awe. The third Marine, older, keeps his weapon up, but his eyes are wet. Morrison sets the canteen down and touches Fujita's shoulder. Just rests his hand there, the contact shocking through the torn flight suit. Then Morrison looks at his corpsman and says something quick. The baby-faced Marine shrugs off his pack and starts pulling out bandages, sulfa powder, a proper morphine syringe. They are going to treat him. Here. Now. Not interrogate. Not execute. Treat. Fujita lies back in the grass and watches the sky wheel overhead, impossibly blue between artillery smoke and burning fuel. His leg is fire. His chest aches where he slammed the control stick during the crash. But he is alive. Alive because his enemy chose life for him when Fujita had already chosen death. The world he knew, the world of samurai codes and honorable suicide and demons in human skin, cracks like the Zero's canopy. Through the fractures, something else becomes visible. A world where enemies kneel in mud to save each other, where warriors become medics, where the battle ends not with a bullet, but with a canteen. Morrison catches him staring. The Marine smiles, actually smiles, and says something else Fujita doesn't understand. But he understands the tone. He understands the expression. He understands that whatever he thought he knew about Americans, about enemies, about war itself, just became irrelevant in the face of water offered by a stranger who should have been his killer. The morphine syringe slides into his arm. Warmth spreads. The pain ebbs to something manageable. As consciousness starts to fade, Fujita's last thought is a question that will follow him through capture, imprisonment, and 43 years beyond. Who are these people? The tent smells like iodine and blood. Fujita's eyes open to canvas overhead, pale light filtering through the fabric. For 3 seconds, he doesn't remember. Then his leg screams. a white-hot spike of agony that tears a gasp from his throat. Easy there, buddy. American. The voice comes from his left. Fujita's head snaps toward it, ignoring the nausea that follows. A boy in marine fatigues, can't be more than 19, baby fat still on his cheeks, is adjusting something on the cot beside him. Not a weapon. A splint. Fujita's splint. The boy notices he's awake. Smiles. Actually smiles. Welcome back. You were out for a while. The Marine pulls a small packet from his kit. Gonna change your dressing, okay? Might sting. Fujita's mind scrambles for purchase. This is wrong. He should be in a cell. Should be facing interrogators. Should be... His thoughts stop when he sees the tent's other occupants. 14 cots, all occupied. Marines, sailors, maybe 2 soldiers. Arms in slings, chests wrapped. One man with half his face bandaged. Americans, all of them. And in the middle of them, on his cot with his clean sheets and his professionally splinted leg, him. The corpsman, name tape reads Kowalski, is already working, peeling back the bandages with practiced gentleness. Fujita watches his hands. Steady. Quick. The same hands that just finished treating the Marine 2 cots over. The one with the sucking chest wound who breathes like a broken bellows. Sorry about the coffee, Kowalski says, nodding toward a battered pot on a field stove. Tastes like diesel, but it's hot. Fujita's Japanese training provides no framework for this. The propaganda briefings covered interrogation resistance, covered maintaining dignity during torture, covered nothing about a teenage enemy medic apologizing for bad coffee while treating shrapnel wounds. Kowalski sprinkles white powder into the wound. Sulfa, Fujita recognizes the sting, then applies fresh gauze. You're lucky. Clean break, no arterial damage. Doc says you'll walk again. Might even fly if your people patch you up right after the war. He says this casually, like discussing the weather. Like the war will end. Like there will be an after. Why? The word escapes before Fujita can stop it. His English is rough but serviceable. Kowalski looks up. Why what? Fujita gestures weakly at the tent, the bandages, the whole impossible situation. Why this? Why treat you? Kowalski shrugs, taping down the dressing. Doc's orders. Everybody gets the good stuff. Morphine, clean bandages, antibiotics when we got 'em. You're a patient now, not a Jap. That word. Patient. Not prisoner. Not enemy. Not the demon the Americans are supposed to be, nor the demon he is supposed to be to them. Patient. Kowalski finishes and sits back. You want that coffee? Fair warning. It's shit. Before Fujita can respond, a commotion near the tent entrance. 2 corpsmen carry in a stretcher. Another Marine. This one gray-faced and shaking. Kowalski is on his feet instantly. Morales, I got a live one. Possible shock. The tent explodes into controlled chaos. 3 medics converging. Scissors cutting away fabric. Someone calling for plasma. Fujita watches them work with the same intensity they'd shown working on him. No hesitation. No ranking of who deserves saving. 20 minutes later, when the new Marine is stabilized, Kowalski returns. The kid looks exhausted. He pours 2 cups of coffee from the battered pot. Hands one to Fujita. Told you it's shit. Fujita takes it. The cup is warm in his hands. The coffee is, indeed, terrible. Bitter and weak, and somehow burnt at the same time. He drinks it anyway. Across the tent, the Marine with the chest wound has been watching. Their eyes meet. The Marine's face is pale, lips tinged blue despite the oxygen. He should be terrified, in pain, focused on his tikipa, own survival. Instead, he winks. The gesture is so unexpected, so absurdly casual, that Fujita almost laughs. The Marine's cracked lips pull into something like a grin. Welcome to the suck, buddy, the Marine rasps, his voice wet and labored. Coffee's shit, but they don't let you die. 2 cots over, a sailor with a bandaged shoulder snorts. Kowalski keeps us alive just to torture us with that coffee. Damn right, Kowalski says, not looking up from his inventory of morphine syrettes. Spite's a powerful medicine. They're joking, bleeding, broken, some of them dying, and they're making jokes, including him, the enemy pilot who might have killed their friends yesterday, in their terrible humor, like it's the most natural thing in the world. Fujita's hand shakes. Coffee slops over the rim, burning his thumb. He doesn't notice. In Kasumigaura, they'd trained him that Americans were undisciplined, individualistic, soft, that their democracy made them weak, incapable of the collective will that made Japan strong. That capture meant torture because Americans had no honor, no code, no humanity. He looks at Kowalski, cataloging bandages with the focus of a man who will not let his patients die for lack of supplies. At the Marine who winked while drowning in his own blood. At the clean sheets, the morphine, the coffee offered freely. They have a code. It's just not the one he was taught to expect. The tent flap opens. A doctor enters, Navy by his insignia, making rounds. He stops at Fujita's cot, checks the splint, reads Kowalski's notes. Then he does something that stops Fujita's breath. He nods. A small gesture of approval, physician to physician, assessing the work done on a patient. Not a prisoner who received adequate detention. A patient who received good care. Nice work, Kowalski, the doctor says. Keep the leg elevated. Watch for infection. He'll mend. He moves on to the Marine with the chest wound, already focused on the next patient who needs him. That night, when the morphine pulls Fujita toward sleep, he lies listening to the sounds of the tent. Kowalski humming while he works, the hiss of the field stove, the wet breathing of the chest wound Marine, still alive, still being kept alive by the same hands that kept Fujita alive. The word echoes in his mind, reshaping everything he thought he knew. Patient, not prisoner. Patient. They have given him a category that transcends war. They have filed him not under enemy, but under human being requiring medical care. The system that governs this tent acknowledges no difference between the Marine who served with them and the pilot who tried to kill them. In the darkness, Fujita understands. This is more dangerous than any interrogation. Torture he could have resisted. Brutality would have confirmed everything he was taught, strengthened his resolve, let him die as a warrior should. But this? Kindness as doctrine? Mercy as system? This destroys him far more thoroughly than cruelty ever could. Because you cannot hate people who are trying to save your life. The wardroom swells with each roll of the transport ship. Fujita sits across a metal table, wrists still bound, the chain clicking against the bracket welded to the floor. He has prepared for this. The propaganda films showed this. Bright lights, sleep deprivation, questions repeated until truth and lies blur into confession. He rehearsed his resistance during training. Name, rank, serial number. Nothing more. Die before betraying the Emperor. Captain William Harrell enters carrying 2 cups and a folder. No swagger, no theatricality. He sets 1 cup in front of Fujita. Coffee, the same terrible diesel-tasting brew from the field hospital. The other he keeps. He sits, opens the folder, and slides something across the table. A Hershey bar. You married, Lieutenant? The question is so absurd that Fujita answers before his training can stop him. Hi. Yes. Harrell nods like they're old colleagues catching up. Me too. 3 years this June. He pulls a photograph from his shirt pocket. A woman in a floral dress, dark hair curled at the shoulders, standing next to a beagle. Margaret. That's Roscoe with her. Dumbest dog you'll ever meet, but she loves him. He turns the photo so Fujita can see it properly. You got a picture? Fujita stares at the photograph, at the dog's lolling tongue, at Margaret's genuine smile. This is the technique. Show false humanity, create false trust, then twist the knife. He has been warned. No picture. She sent one. Lost when my zero. He stops. Information. He is giving information. But Harold just nods again, sympathetic. Hell of a thing losing your bird. I fly dauntless dive bombers when they let me out of the office. Had to ditch one off midway. Engine fire. Worst swim of my life. He sips his coffee, makes a face. This is genuinely terrible. You want sugar? Might help. 2 hours pass. Harold talks about Iowa, about his father's farm, the smell of turned earth in spring, how his mother makes something called apple pie that he misses so badly it physically hurts. He asks about Fujita's home. Fujita, against every instinct, tells him about Nagano Prefecture, about mountains that turn white in winter, about his daughter Keiko, born 3 months before his deployment, about holding her exactly once, her weight impossibly small in his hands, before leaving for war. When he mentions Keiko, Harold's eyes, gray, like Morrison's were blue, soften. Really soften. Not the calculated sympathy of an interrogator, but something genuine, almost wounded. Christ. 3 months old. He's quiet for several seconds. You'd give anything to see her again. Not a question, a statement. Hi. The word comes out broken. Harold makes notes. Fujita watches him write, trying to identify the intelligence he's leaked, the tactical advantage he's surrendered. But the notes seem focused on personal details, not military ones. When Harold asks about his training, it's to compare. We taught dive angles at Pensacola, probably different from your method. Not interrogate. When Fujita mentions the Kasumigaura Air Base, Harold asks if it's near Tokyo, whether the food was any good, what the instructors were like as men. The conversation feels wrong. Fujita keeps waiting for the turn, the trap, the moment when kindness becomes cruelty. It never comes. Finally, Harold closes the folder. He stands, stretches, outside the porthole. The Pacific is mercury gray under cloud cover. Look, Lieutenant, you flew for your country. I fly for mine. This war made us enemies. He extends his hand. Doesn't mean we have to act like it. Fujita stares at the offered hand. Takes it. The grip is firm, respectful. The handshake of equals meeting at a peacetime airfield, not captor and captive aboard a warship. Guard'll take you back, Harold says. If you need anything, medical, whatever, tell them to find me. 3 more days to Pearl, then you'll transfer to the States. Could be worse places to spend a war than California. He picks up the Hershey bar, still untouched on the table, presses it into Fujita's bound hands. For Keiko, he says quietly, when you see her again, tell her it's from the American pilot who knew her father was brave. The guard escorts Fujita back to his quarters. Not a cell, but an officer's cabin. Spare but clean. A real bunk. A porthole. A small writing desk bolted to the floor. He sits, still holding the chocolate bar. The wrapper crinkles. Brown paper printed with English words he cannot read. A silver label with more English. He unwraps it carefully, preserving the paper. The chocolate itself is darker than he expected, segmented into neat rectangles. He breaks off one piece, places it on his tongue. The sweetness is shocking, rich, almost overwhelming. Nothing like the sparse rations he received before missions. Nothing like the dried fish and rice that sustained him through training. This is luxury, abundance, the casual gift of something precious given as if it costs nothing. He wraps the remainder carefully, tucks it into his shirt pocket against his heart. Through the porthole, stars emerge as the clouds break. Fujita has navigated by these stars, used them to find his way home after night missions. Now they lead him toward enemy territory, toward imprisonment, toward a fate he cannot predict. But he is not dead. He is not tortured. He is sitting in a cabin eating chocolate given by a man who asked about his daughter with genuine tenderness. The propaganda called Americans soft, undisciplined, incapable of true warrior spirit. But Morrison knelt in the mud with water. Kowalski hummed while changing bandages. Harold shook his hand like they were men, not monsters. Fujita fingers the chocolate wrapper. Thinks about Keiko. Imagines her toddling by the time he sees her again. If he sees her again. The war is not over. His captivity is just beginning. But something fundamental has shifted. A tectonic adjustment in how he understands the world. His enemy sees him as human, treats him as human, insists on his humanity even when propaganda demands otherwise. In the darkness of the cabin, Fujita tastes chocolate and something more bitter. The slow, terrible dissolution of everything he was taught to believe. Morrison's canteen was the first crack. Harold's handshake is the second. And Fujita suspects there will be more cracks to come, until the entire structure of his understanding crumbles and something new must be built from the ruins. He is a prisoner of war. But he is also, impossibly, a patient. A person. A father remembered tenderly by his enemy. The chocolate melts on his tongue. Sweet, strange, undeniable. 4 months into captivity, Nobuo Fujita sits in the quiet of Camp Tracy's library. A worn volume of Basho's haiku open in his lap. The late afternoon light slants through the window, catching dust motes suspended in air that smells of paper and pine. He reads slowly, savoring each syllable like men savor scarce water. An old, silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. Silence again. The simplicity makes his throat tight. He has not read poetry since before Kasumigaura, since before the war consumed everything soft and replaced it with steel. The chair across from him scrapes. Fujita looks up. Lieutenant Tanaka stands there, the submarine officer who still wears his bitterness like armor. His face is carved from contempt. Reading their books now? Japanese books, Fujita says quietly. Basho, 17th century. In their library, Tanaka's voice carries across the small room. 2 other prisoners look up from their reading, then quickly down again. Eating their food, drinking their coffee. He leans forward, hands flat on the table. You smile at the guards. You say thank you in English. You are becoming one of them. Fujita closes the book carefully, marking his place with a finger. Through the window, he can see the guard tower, the fence, the California hills beyond. Not so different from Nagano's mountains, if he squints, if he forgets where he is. What would you have me do, Tanaka? Remember who you are. Tanaka's spit hits the floor between them. Remember what they are. What are they? Fujita meets his eyes. Tell me. You have been here as long as I have. What have they done to you? Tanaka's jaw works. His hands curl into fists. It does not matter what they do. It matters what they are. Demons. Animals. This is temporary mercy before the cruelty comes. When? The question comes out harder than Fujita intends. He stands, the chair scraping back. 4 months of kindness have built into something he cannot contain. When does the torture begin? When do they stop feeding us the same rations as their own soldiers? When does the doctor stop treating our illnesses? He gestures around the library. When do they burn these books and beat us for wanting to read? Tanaka's face darkens to purple. You have forgotten Bushido. No. Fujita's voice drops to almost a whisper. The other prisoners are definitely listening now. I remember Bushido perfectly. I remember my orders. Die rather than be captured, because the enemy shows no mercy. I remember raising my pistol to my own head, because I believed what we were told. He pauses. I remember the Marine who set down his rifle and gave me water instead. Weakness. Was it? Fujita thinks of Morrison's face, the steadiness in those blue eyes. Or was it something else? Something we did not have a word for. Tanaka straightens, his whole body rigid. You disgrace your uniform. I have no uniform anymore. Neither do you. Fujita sits back down, opens the book again. We are prisoners. The war continues without us. All we can choose now is what kind of men we will be when it ends. If it ends, it will end. Fujita finds his place in the poem. All things end. The question is, what remains after? Tanaka storms out, his footsteps sharp against the wooden floor. The door slams. In the silence that follows, Fujita realizes his hands are shaking. He has crossed a line he did not know existed until he stepped over it. One of the other prisoners, a young private named Ito, approaches carefully. Lieutenant Fujita? His voice is barely above a whisper. What you said about what kind of men we will be? Fujita looks up. Ito cannot be more than 19, the same age as Kowalski, the corpsman who hummed while saving his life. I have been thinking, Ito continues. The guards. They are not what we were told. No, Fujita agrees. They are not. Some of us. Ito glances back at the two other prisoners who are watching. We want to understand their language, why they... He struggles for words. Why they give us chocolate. Why they have this library. Why they do not hate us the way we were taught to hate them. The question sits in the air like Basho's frog, suspended before the splash. Fujita thinks of Harold's handshake, of Kowalski calling him patient, of Morrison's canteen. He thinks of Keiko, his daughter, who would be 7 months old now, growing up in a world shaped by this war, by the hatreds that fuel it, by the propaganda that makes enemies of strangers, unless someone builds a different bridge. Come tomorrow, Fujita says. Bring anyone who wants to learn. We will start with basic English. Nouns first. Water, food, peace. He pauses. Friend. Ito's face transforms. Thank you, Lieutenant. After they leave, Fujita sits alone as the afternoon light fades to amber. A guard passes by the window, the young one who used to be a teacher in California. Their eyes meet briefly. The guard nods, a small gesture of acknowledgement, and continues his patrol. The next morning, the guard stops by Fujita's barracks. He carries a book, worn at the edges, the cover bearing the title English Grammar and Composition. He sets it on Fujita's bunk without a word. Fujita opens the front cover. Written in careful script. Language is a bridge. Build carefully. No signature. No explanation needed. That afternoon, 7 prisoners gather in the library. Fujita has never taught before, but he begins the way the Americans began with him. With small kindnesses, with patience, with the assumption that learning is possible even between enemies. He writes on the small chalkboard the guard provided. Water. This is what Corporal Morrison gave me, he says in Japanese, when he could have given me death. He taps the word. Water. Say it. 7 voices, hesitant and uncertain, repeat the word. The sound of former enemies learning the language of mercy. Tanaka walks past the library window, his face set in stone. He does not look in. But he does not spit either. Fujita teaches for 2 hours. By the end, his students can say, "Hello, thank you, book friend." Simple words. But Fujita remembers how Morrison's tone mattered more than his words that day in the kunai grass, meaning lives in more than vocabulary. That evening, lying in his bunk, Fujita holds the grammar book. He turns to the first lesson, reading the guard's marginal notes, little hints and explanations written in careful English. A teacher's instinct transcending a war. He thinks of bridges, how they require both sides to meet in the middle, how someone must lay the first plank, take the first step, extend the first hand across the divide. Morrison chose to save him. Harold chose to share chocolate and conversation. Kowalski chose to hum while healing. The teacher chose to donate his book. Now it is Fujita's turn to choose. Not just to receive kindness, but to multiply it. To become not just a prisoner changed by mercy, but an agent of transformation. Outside, the California stars emerge. The same stars that shine over Nagano, over Guadalcanal, over all the places where men fight and die, believing the other side consists of demons. Fujita opens the grammar book to the first lesson and begins to study, begins to build, begins to become the bridge he needed when he lay broken in the mud. The war will end. That much is certain. What comes after? That depends on choices made in moments exactly like this one. In a library in California, over a donated book, with 7 students learning to say thank you to the guards who could have been their torturers but chose to be their teachers instead. The lobby of the Hilton San Diego smells like convention coffee and 40-year-old memories. Nobuo Fujita, 67, stands beside his daughter Keiko, the infant he'd only imagined in a field hospital tent, now a professor with gentle hands and her mother's patient eyes. His suit jacket is crisp, Tokyo-tailored, but his palms are damp. Across the lobby, through the knots of gray-haired men wearing reunion badges, he sees him. James Morrison moves slower than Fujita. Remembers. The red hair has surrendered to white, though the Tennessee height remains. He wears a checked shirt and the same steady posture, like a man who has never needed to prove anything to anyone. Their eyes lock across 40 feet of carpeted distance, and 4 decades of silence broken only by letters. Morrison stops 3 feet away, close enough to shake hands, close enough to embrace. The space between them contains Guadalcanal, contains a canteen and a Nambu pistol, and a choice made in kunai grass. You got old, Lieutenant. Morrison's voice cracks on the last word. His eyes are wet. Fujita laughs, a sound that surprises him with its lightness. You lost hair, Corporal. Then they're holding each other. 2 old men crying in a hotel lobby while 400 Pacific War veterans watch. Some of them are crying too. Keiko steps back, her own face wet, giving them space for a reunion that has taken 43 years to arrange. Morrison smells like Old Spice and laundry soap. His shoulders shake. Fujita feels his own chest heaving. 43 years of gratitude and confusion and transformation pouring out in salt water on a stranger's shoulder who stopped being a stranger the moment he knelt in the mud. I'm glad you made it, Morrison whispers. So damn glad. Because of you, Fujita manages. All of it. Because of you. They break apart, wipe their eyes, laugh at themselves like schoolboys caught weeping. Morrison's wife, Janet, Fujita knows from letters, stands nearby with tissues and a smile that suggests she expected this. Keiko and Janet exchange a look. 2 women who understand that men sometimes need to fall apart before they can stand together. The conference organizers give them 10 minutes, then lead them to the banquet hall. 400 faces. American and Japanese veterans, their families, historians, reconciliation activists. The room holds enough collective trauma to fill the Pacific Ocean, enough grief to drown continents. But also this, men who have chosen to be here, who have chosen to remember together instead of separately. Fujita stands at the podium. Morrison sits in the front row, still wiping his eyes. 43 years ago, Fujita begins, his English carrying the accent of 1,000 hours of study, I had a pistol to my head. I was certain of 3 things. I was certain I would die. I was certain my enemies were demons. I was certain there was honor only in death. He pauses. The room is silent, except for the whisper of the ventilation system. I was wrong about all 3, he tells it. The crash, the broken leg, the 3 Marines moving through the grass. The propaganda that had filled his head with certainties about American brutality, American inferiority, American dishonor. The moment Morrison lowered his rifle, set it down,
Walked forward with empty hands and full canteen. He could have shot me. That would have been war. He could have captured me with force. That would have been
victory. Fujita's hands gripped the podium. Instead, he saved me, not because I deserved it, not because we were friends, but because he chose to see a man who needed saving instead of an enemy who needed killing. In the front row, Morrison has his face in his hands. Fujita tells about Kowalski humming in the field hospital, about Harold and the chocolate bar for a daughter he'd never met, about the library at Camp Tracy and the grammar book inscribed with words about bridges, about learning that honor isn't found in dying for your country, but in living for your humanity. The propaganda taught me that Americans were soft, weak, without discipline or honor. He looks directly at Morrison, but this man showed me that it takes more strength to extend a canteen than to pull a trigger. More discipline to choose mercy than to choose vengeance. More honor to save your enemy than to kill him. The applause starts small, then builds. Some people stand. Then everyone is standing, clapping, weeping. Morrison rises on unsteady legs, turns to the crowd, shakes his head like he doesn't deserve this. But he does. They all know he does. Afterward, in a quieter conference room, a dozen of them gather. Veterans from both sides, families, translators. They drink together, sake and bourbon mixing like cultures, like old stories, finding new meanings. Morrison tells about carrying Fujita through the mud. You were heavy, Lieutenant. All that warrior spirit weighs something. Fujita laughs. The coffee. God, the coffee was worse than battle. Still is. Kowalski, impossibly also here, flown in from Chicago, chimes in. Navy never learned to make decent coffee. The laughter is genuine. These men have earned the right to find humor in horror, to transform trauma into connection. At midnight, when the sake bottle is empty and the stories have been told and retold, Morrison asks the question Fujita has carried for 4 decades. Did you ever wonder why I put down my rifle? Fujita nods. He has wondered every day since Guadalcanal. Morrison stares at his hands. Farmers' hands, counselors' hands, hands that have held rifles and wounded men and probably grandchildren. My daddy taught me something. He was a coal miner, never finished school, but he was the wisest man I ever knew. He looks up at Fujita. He said, the man who needs killing and the man who needs saving are sometimes the same person. It's up to you to decide which one you're looking at. The room is completely silent. When I saw you with that pistol to your head, I saw a man who needed saving. Everything else, the war, the propaganda, the fact that you were trying to kill us yesterday, all that could wait. But saving you couldn't wait. So I chose. Fujita feels something unlock in his chest. 43 years of wondering answered, not with philosophy or strategy, but with simple human choice. You gave me my life, Fujita says quietly. But more than that. You gave me my humanity. You showed me that we choose who we are in every moment. Enemy is not a nature. It is a role, and anyone can stop playing that role anytime. Morrison reaches across the table, takes Fujita's hand. You taught me too, you know. You taught me that the man you save might become family, that mercy multiplies, that the choice to see humanity creates more humanity. They sit like that, hands clasped across the table, while their families watch. Keiko is crying again. Janet has her arm around her. At 2 a.m, when the hotel staff is diplomatically suggesting they move along, Morrison and Fujita walk to the lobby. They embrace again, longer this time, without the urgency of reunion. Just 2 old men grateful to be alive, grateful for choices made in mud and grass 43 years ago. Thank you, Fujita whispers, for seeing me. Thank you, Morrison replies, for letting me. Outside, San Diego's night air is cool and salt-scented. Keiko and Janet have become instant friends, making plans for visits, for continued connection. The work of building bridges continues. Fujita looks at Morrison one last time before they part. Until tomorrow's conference sessions, until the next reunion, until whatever time remains to men who have lived long past the moment they should have become enemies forever. Your father was right, Fujita says. We are always choosing, every moment. Who needs killing and who needs saving? Who is enemy and who is human? Who we are and who we will become. Morrison smiles. Glad I chose right. So am I, Corporal. So am I. They part into separate cars, separate hotels, carrying between them a story that has become bigger than both of them. A story about canteens and chocolate bars and grammar books. About the choice to lower a rifle, to extend a hand, to build bridges instead of walls. In the morning, they will tell the story again to new audiences. But tonight, the story is complete. Two men, once enemies, now family. Proof that humanity is not discovered but chosen. Proof that mercy, multiplied, can transform not just individuals but the very meaning of victory. The weapon that won wasn't the canteen. It was the choice to offer it.